Hi everyone, Linda from Let's Talk Prepping. And I had a couple of kind of neat news articles to bring you tonight, but I saw this one by Michael Snyder and I thought it was really important and that I would bring it to you. Now, Michael Snyder has a blog called theeconomiccollapseblog.com. Theeconomiccollapseblog.com, and he's really good. I went there and it said it couldn't reach it. I tried a couple different browsers and every browser said they couldn't reach it. Now it just could be a glitch tonight, something wrong with his blog, or it could be something more sinister. Maybe he's being taken down from the internet. But for now, I'll go over here and we'll look at this article by Michael Snyder. Another article by Michael Snyder helps put it all in perspective regarding one of the major threats we're facing, food shortages. And I really want you to pay attention here. He lists 33 numbers that we need to keep in mind regarding food shortages. He says not enough people are taking this seriously. So I really want you to think about this. A list of 33 things we know about the coming food shortages. Things are far worse than you're being told. Over the past few months, I have been carefully documenting facts that show that global food production is going to be way down in 2022. Unfortunately, most people out there don't seem to understand that the food that isn't being grown in 2022 won't be on our store shelves in 2023. We're facing an unprecedented worldwide food crisis next year, but the vast majority of the population doesn't seem very alarmed about this. So think about that once you see all 33 of these reasons that we're going to have major food shortages. I hope it will encourage you to do something. So I would encourage you to help me get this warning out by sharing this list with as many people as you possibly can. If you have a website, put it on a website. As you will see below, we now have so many data points, it's impossible to deny what is coming. The following is a list of 33 things we know about the coming food shortages. And today is September 6th, and this was written September 5th, I believe, 2022. Number 1, the hard red winter wheat crop in the United States this year was the smallest since 1963. But in 1963, there were only 182 million people living in this nation. Today, our population is 329 million. That's almost double, and we have the smallest winter wheat crop. So if you can get some winter wheat for long-term storage, you can grind it into flour and make bread. Number 2, it's projected that the rice harvest in California will be half what it would be in a normal year. So we've got wheat down, rice down. The U.S. tomato harvest will come in at just 10.5 million tons in 2022. That's over 1 million tons lower than a normal year. This will be the worst U.S. corn harvest in at least a decade. Year-to-year shipments of carrots in the United States are down 45%. I usually don't hear anything about carrots, do you? Year-to-year shipments of sweet corn in the United States are down 20%. Year-to-year shipments of sweet potatoes in the U.S. are down 13%. And I don't usually hear about carrots and sweet corn and sweet potatoes, and celery down 11%. Peach production down 15%. Almost 3/4 of all U.S. farmers say that this year's drought is hurting their harvests. Thanks to the endless drought, the total number of cattle in Oregon is down 41%. The total number of cattle in New Mexico is down 43%. Thanks to the endless drought, the total number of cattle in Texas is down 50%. Number 14, One beef producer in Oklahoma is now predicting that ground beef could eventually top $50 a pound. Think what steak would be if ground beef is $50 a pound. 40% of the U.S. has been suffering from a drought for 101 consecutive weeks. Overall, it's the worst multi-year mega drought in the United States in 1,200 years. I'd really like to know if they are controlling the weather and if it's something to do with weather, a weather war. There are all kinds of patents for controlling the weather. And is the Army doing it? Is somebody doing it? Or maybe it's just a conspiracy theory. Europe is currently experiencing the worst drought it's seen in 500 years. In 500 years, in some parts of Central Europe, river levels have fallen so low that hunger stones are being revealed for the first time in centuries. I'm going to have to look that up, hunger stones. Corn production in the entire EU could be down by as much as 1/5. We're being warned there will be crop losses in France up to 35%. All of this adds up, you notice. It's projected that crop losses in some areas of the UK could be as high as 50%. Reported that crop losses up to 50% in some parts of Germany. Some farmers in Italy have lost 80% of their harvest. Agricultural production in Somalia was down 80% this year. Number 24, in Eastern Africa, the endless drought has already resulted in deaths of at least 7 million animals. And those animals are most likely the ones that we would get our meat from, or they would get their meat from. In China, they're facing the worst drought they have ever experienced in recorded history. India normally accounts for 40% of the global rice trade. That's, almost half, 40%. But we are being warned that production in that country could be way down in 2022 due to considerable rainfall deficits in the key rice-producing states. A third of the entire nation of Pakistan was under water after recent floods absolutely devastated that nation, and agricultural areas were hit particularly hard. As a result, the vast majority of crops in the country have been washed away. So the crops are just washed away. It's estimated that roughly 65% of the country's food basket, crops like rice, cotton, wheat, and onion, have been washed away. The Pakistani foreign minister said in an interview this week, offered an even starker outlook by saying 80 to 90% of the country's crops have been damaged by floods. See, it's all just adding up. It's just not one country or two countries, it's everybody. He's not even mentioning Ukraine here and Russia. 28, the prices of some fertilizers have tripled since 2021, and others have quadrupled. One payment company is reporting the number of Americans using their app to take out short-term loans for groceries has risen 95%. Demand at U.S. food banks is now even worse than it was during the height of the COVID pandemic. The World Health Organization is telling us millions of people in Africa are now potentially facing a very real possibility of starving to death. According to the World Food Program, 828 million people around the world go to bed hungry each night. Needless to say, that number will soon be much higher. The UN Secretary General has publicly stated that he believes it's likely there will be multiple famines in 2023. And I'm telling you, I really believe it's all planned by the global elites. As the global food supplies get tighter and tighter, so will the risk of civil unrest. In fact, that's already happening. The risk of civil unrest has surged this year in more than half of the world's countries, signaling a coming period of heightened global instability fueled by inflation, war, and shortages of essentials. a UK-based risk consulting and intelligence firm, 101 of 198 countries tracked on its civil unrest index saw an increase in their risk of civil unrest between the second and third quarters of this year. In the recent weeks, we have seen absolutely massive protests in cities all over the planet. But conditions aren't even bad yet. So what will things be like in 2023? Think about that. How are you going to survive? How are you going to secure your food, your home, your family? So what will things be like in 2023 when it finally becomes exceedingly clear that there simply will be not enough food for everyone? Wealthy countries will have the resources to buy up much of what is available on the market. And as we know, China is already buying up food. And that means that many poor countries will deeply suffer. If everything that you have read in this article sounds familiar, that is because we have been warned for years that such conditions were coming. In 2023, there will be famines and civil unrest all over the globe. This is not a drill. An extremely serious global food crisis has already begun, and I would encourage you to get prepared for what is ahead while you still can. So this again is by Michael Snyder, and the economiccollapseblog.com is his website. Again, I couldn't get onto it tonight for some reason. So there are a lot more than 33 when you think about it. You know, he didn't mention Ukraine, he didn't mention Russia, and he didn't mention all the food plants that have been burning and things like that, the bird flu, all of that. We could maybe get up to 50 different things instead of 33. So think about it. Think of how it's going to affect you. If you just hear this and you say, oh, it's not going to bother me, we're going to have food in the U.S., well, then don't do anything. But if you have just the slightest idea that things might really be getting bad, I would advise you, for now, just buy some extra food every time you go to the grocery store. Buy 3 extra cans, vegetables, beans, canned vegetables, canned beans. Buy 3 cans of each. That would give you 3 meals for 2 people, say. You know, a half a can of vegetables, a half a can of beans. And it would be a start. So start doing something. Leave us some comments down below if you have anything that you think we should know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, which might be as soon as tomorrow.